Hello, I need the microphone. Welcome to the SDG Pavilion. This is where we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. And we're here specifically to talk about ACTnow, which is the UN campaign for individual action and what individuals can do to drive change. And I'm here with three amazing young change makers. And it's also Youth Day here at COP, so a very busy day for you all. So thank you so much for making the time. Let's start with you, Melati Wijzen. You call yourself a full-time change maker and movement builder, and at the age of 12, you founded Bye Bye Plastic Bags. Now you have a new enterprise going called Youthtopia. Tell us how you are driving change, how you are getting youth involved and really making a difference in the world.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm really happy to be here and to sit alongside such incredible change makers, so thank you for having me. My journey started 10 years ago, and when I look back at 12-year-old Melati, I had no idea what the word change maker meant or what being an activist looked like. It was just doing the right thing, and I think that COP is also such a space where we see individuals, especially here on Youth Day, so many young people who are leading by example because it's the right thing to do. And that's where individual action kind of stems from, this knowledge and this feeling of wanting to do everything in our power to take action. So when I started at 12 years old, the simple idea of change was to make our island home of Bali plastic bag free. And it was a lot more complicated than we had envisioned. It took a lot more, and it involved a lot of lessons learned by doing, of how to build a team, how to create a campaign, how to speak to politicians. But finally in 2019, thanks to the effort of so many like-minded organizations, Bali implemented a ban on single-use plastic, bags, straws, and styrofoam. And today my work is revolving more around Youthtopia, so focusing on youth empowerment through peer-to-peer education. And that's really because I believe that we all have the ability to create change, but some of us might not know where and how to start. And that's really what my focus in the change space is, all about how we can learn from the 10 years of change making from my personal story, but also from so many of us to share that so we can accelerate the change we want to see.
Amazing. And empowering youth and getting others on board to drive that change is also what you're doing, Lalitya Acharya. Thank you so much for being here. You are the founder of NERID, organization to tackle the water crisis. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me again. It's wonderful to be here. My work specifically focuses on UN SDG number 6. That goal is talking about water. And the water crisis is something that affects nearly every single part of the earth, both developing as well as developed countries. And it is a problem that is going to only be continued to be exacerbated the more and more the climate crisis continues to grow. Specifically, I was inspired by a family trip to India, which is where I'm from ethnically and where I was born. And there, really, access to water is extremely limited. My family and I would boil the water, filter the water, do everything that we possibly could, and still we would always get sick from drinking contaminated water. I have a background in science, specifically artificial intelligence, and I wondered how could I integrate the water crisis and AI together to develop some kind of tool to help mitigate the crisis. And what I learned was that active detection systems are critical. So we need to be able to identify contamination in water distribution systems before it spreads. Right now, the biggest indicator that something is wrong with water is when people start to get sick, and bad public health is not the indicator that we need to have. So I developed a device that's able to use artificial intelligence to detect microbial contamination in water distribution systems. I'm working on implementing it in my hometown in the United States, as well as in India and in Nepal. And beyond that, I also continue to focus on education, STEM and water education to help make people more aware about the crisis and also to empower other youth activists to think creatively, to incorporate science in their work from a young age. And lastly, our organization also uses legislative initiatives to help codify access to clean water as the human right and necessity that it is.
That's a great segue also over to Alessandra. I mean, not the education, technology, that's very much what you do through the A-World mobile app. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. So just like Lalitya and Melati, we built A-World because it comes from our personal experience. We actually come from the fashion industry, and after seeing one of the factories that was manufacturing fast fashion, we saw the impact that this industry had on people and planet, and we said, okay, we need to try to empower people to take individual action. strong believers into the individual action. We wanted to build a digital platform that can help you take single actions and show you the impact behind these actions, which is extremely important. It wanted to build something positive, something that guides you on a day-to-day, something that sits in your pocket, and use a digital experience that can impact millions of people from all over the world. We believe that live sustainably means exactly three things: understanding and tracking your carbon footprint, but then growing your knowledge and then taking action to reduce your carbon footprint is key. And this is all under the SDG umbrella, and now it supports, we know that it supports the ACTnow campaign, the campaign for our common future. We use different levers to engage with people and citizens from all over the world. We know that people want to be part of a community of like-minded people, but they also want to see others taking action too. It's extremely important. We kind of mirror behaviors when we, just because we're human beings. I want to track my progress and see that I'm doing better, so that makes me feel better as an individual. I want to be rewarded too, and I also want to compete. So we use gamification to stimulate positive competition among peers. We launch challenges that work extremely well. And so far, we can announce that just yesterday, we received A World in support of ACTnow is the top app for Google in the good category for 2023. So it's an extreme achievement, and I'm very happy for this. Thank you.
Congratulations, and we're very happy because it's the app that supports our campaign. So you should all download it. A World in support of ACTnow. Now, you've all been very successful in your efforts, and I'm wondering, do you have any advice for young people today who want to make a difference and who may want to start something like you? What's your advice to the young people, even younger than you? I mean, you know, the really young that are looking up to you and want to follow your example.
I can go first, and this is a lot of the work that I do on a day-to-day basis now. I spend more time in classrooms than in any other room to share the story of bioplastic bags, because that's become a living example that kids can do things. And oftentimes, you know, students line up refusing to go back to math class, refusing to go back to English class, saying, okay, how can I create change? Where do I start? And I think my biggest advice as well is always that when we look at something like the climate crisis, it can feel so overwhelming, you have no idea where to start. And I think task number one is just to focus in on what is around you. And I try and implement the 1 meter bubble concept. So imagine if we can break it down and say that you are responsible for 1 meter around you, 1 meter in front, 1 meter to the left, 1 meter to the right. And your responsibility is to make sure that everything that comes into that 1 meter bubble, whether you go to school, whether you're at home, whether you're in your community, that everything in that 1 meter feels safe, is aligned with your values, and is living to the concept of sustainability. Imagine if we all embraced and implemented the 1 meter bubble concept. And I think that's part of the breaking it down. We have to make sure that being part of the solution feels tangible. The last thing we want to feed more of is the climate anxiety that so many of us in our generation already feel. So yes, it's important to acknowledge that we want to take action, but the first step is also always looking internally, seeing how you individually in your spaces around the world can take care of that 1 meter bubble.
I think that's a wonderful analogy, and kind of adding off of that, I think a key component is applicability. So a lot of the times, a lot of the work that I do is correlating research or really cool science technologies that never make it out of the lab and are never really implemented into the real world. And so a big thing of what I do with my STEM education programming with kids is try to encourage them to consider the problem that we're trying to solve, but also the applicability of the solution, the use of that solution. So how are we going to put it into the real world? Where are you going to implement it? Are you talking to the key stakeholders in these communities? And really trying to gauge, like, what are the small, simple solutions? They don't have to be crazy. They don't have to be huge. But what are small, tangible bits and pieces of applicable work that we can do in order to help sustain and solve the climate crisis?
I think it's being loud, being curious. I mean, it's being a journey for me personally. If I change, everyone could change. And what really changed for us is talking about this. It's like getting other people involved, talking to my family, talking to my colleagues. It's something that really helped. We know that living sustainably is not easy today, but we need to be transparent. It's a journey. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And just talking to others, being transparent, trying to involve others in the part of the discussion really is helping us drive big fundamental change. And
now we're here at the UN Climate Conference, of course, which is a big gathering of world leaders, ministers, negotiators. It's really governments we're looking to, and to make that change and to come up with an ambitious outcome for this conference. So as my last question, I want to ask you all, what's your message to the country delegates who are here? What do you hope to get out of this conference? What do you expect from them? Yeah.
Okay. I'll start. I don't want to be too harsh, but I want to say we're here, we're watching, and we'll remember, and we demand change. I mean, it's like our actions speak for ourselves, and we want change. What's happening is not enough. We want more, and we want it quicker. And we're part of this, so we actually demand change, and we demand it right now.
Bouncing off of that, I think listening to youth voices is critical. We are the ones who are inheriting the problems that we were not even around to create. We weren't even alive when a lot of these problems really started to form. And secondly, I want world leaders to understand that the solutions that we are implementing right now cannot be the solutions of the future. There are new technologies, there are new policies, there's AI coming out, new research, STEM developments that are happening at a crazy, insane pace of growth, and we need to integrate those into the work that we're doing. There's tools like refreezing the Arctic, for example, so we need to not only mitigate climate change, but perhaps reverse it entirely. And being afraid of these new tools, new technologies that we're starting to see emerge is only going to be a detriment to us. Science and policy can no longer be two separate fundamental institutions. We need to integrate technology and research and all of these developments into our daily work. And so I really encourage policymakers and key decision makers to listen to scientists, listen to the facts, and really try to understand that these are tools that researchers are giving us that we need to implement. Scientists can create the tools, they can put it in front of us, but then it's up to us to make sure that they're being integrated. And that's a huge part of what I try to do with NARID, and I believe it needs to be integrated far beyond the water crisis into every other part of the climate crisis.
Yes, and that's already a mic drop moment right there. I think what I can add as well is that, we can't solve these challenges with the same thinking that created them. So we need creativity, we need bravery, and we need real leadership. And next to that, it's also about implementation. A lot of the changes I seem to idolize and think that we're going to make the change that we need to happen during the 2 weeks of COP. But the real work happens after and before the conference. So it takes all of us, but especially our leaders, to set a systems change for us to be able to implement and accelerate a lot of the discussions that we're hearing in all of these different pavilions, in all of these different discussions, led also mostly by young people and change makers on the ground who are already leading by example. So we want to see our leaders implementing and paving the way to create a systems change to allow us to accelerate a lot of the solutions and technologies that are already here.
Yes, and as you said, the work continues after this COP. We need leadership, we need change, we need action now, and we need you to keep doing what you're doing. Really keep up the energy, the initiative, the activism. We need you to also keep putting pressure on leaders, hold them accountable. And so thank you very much for what you're doing, and thank you for being here today.